Today on Inquirer. A vessel catches fire in the waters of Basilan, according to the Philippine Coast Guard. Death toll now at 26. Philippines' outstanding debt hits new high of 13.75 trillion pesos in February. Amid issues with the International Criminal Court, President Bongbong Marcos says Philippines' criminal justice system fully functioning. And Philippine Coast Guard says at least 20 foreign vessels spotted in the West Philippine Sea. Good evening. The Philippine Coast Guard says a sea vessel caught fire in the waters of Basilan on Wednesday night. To tell us more, here's Zakarian Sarao reporting live. Zach, tell us what's the latest on this story.
Yes, Bay, at least 26 have so far been reported dead in the fire that engulfed a passenger ferry in Basilan on Wednesday night. Initially, 13 bodies were recovered from the sea before Basilan Governor Jim Hataman Saliman later updated the figures, saying that 13 more remains, all of which were reportedly charred by the fire, were recovered by the Philippine Coast Guard inside the ship. Saliman said that 3 of the 13 recovered bodies were children. According to the PCG, the boat left the Zamboanga port at 9 p.m. on Wednesday before catching fire at sea off Baluk-Baluk Island before midnight. The cause of the fire is still unknown. The boat's manifest indicated that it was carrying 205 passengers. However, Saliman said that a total of 297 survivors have so far been rescued, only 35 of which are the ship's crew members. Haji Mutamad Municipal Mayor Arsina Kahing Nano, for her part, noted the disparity between the manifest's registered passengers and the rescued survivors. Nano also expressed concern for the possibility of an oil spill, but said that the PCG has already vowed to clean up the ship's mess. Meanwhile, disaster responders from Isabela City, Basilan Provincial Government, the Coast Guard, the Navy, police, and residents have already begun helping out with search and rescue operations for survivors. Back to you, Bay.
And Zach, have we heard of assistance so far provided to the survivors and the families of those who died in this tragedy?
Well, Bay, in a recent statement by Basilan Representative Mujin Hataman, 3,000 pesos worth of financial aid has already been distributed to 68 survivors. This is on top of the 2,000 pesos aid provided by the Department of Social Welfare and Development. Hataman said that the local government is now already coordinating with different authorities to determine how to further assist the victims of the fire.
All right. That's Zakarian Sarao reporting live. The Philippine national government debt stock increased to reach a new record high, pegged at 13.75 trillion pesos as of end February. The Bureau of Treasury data shows outstanding debt rose by 0.4% from January, representing an additional 54.3 billion pesos in February. The government's debt stock was at 13.7 trillion pesos by the end of January, according to Treasury records. Local debt increased to 944 trillion pesos, while foreign debt rose to 4.31 trillion pesos. This is mainly because the government's new borrowings were more than the payments made in February. President Bongbong Marcos gives assurance before the world stage that the Philippines' criminal justice system is fully functioning. He issued the statement in a video message during the 2023 Summit for Democracy. This comes after the International Criminal Court rejected the Philippine government's request to suspend its probe into the bloody war on drugs, while the appeal to ultimately stop the investigation is still pending.
Let me emphasize, the rule of law prevails in the country. Our criminal justice system is fully functioning. The Philippines has a national legislation punishing heinous crimes. We have vigorously exercised our jurisdiction to investigate and prosecute crimes, including those allegedly committed in the context of the anti-illegal drugs campaign.
In the Philippines' fight against illegal drugs, Marcos says the government continues to focus on strengthening state programs on rehabilitation, prevention, education, and assistance to drug victims and their families. He also says the government is ensuring transparency and accountability on law enforcement operations. In December 2021, U.S. President Joe Biden held the first of two summits for democracy, which brought together leaders from government, civil society, and the private sector aimed at setting forth an affirmative agenda for democratic renewal.
Next on Inquirer Today. Philippine Coast Guard says at least 20 foreign vessels spotted in the West Philippine Sea. Senator Bato Dela Rosa avoiding travel to International Criminal Court member countries over fear of arrest. And House Speaker Martin Romualdez to act as caretaker of Negros Oriental's 3rd District during Representative Arnie Teves' 60-day suspension.
This is Inquirer Today. We'll be back soon.
Hello, I'm Paul Sumayaw.
I'm Jere Directo, and we're owners of barbershop here in Laguna.
Barbira is a wordplay between Barbie, which is kind of also a slur, no? Especially sa mga effeminate gays. But there was a viral video that came out, nasabi ko na nga ba Barbie? Parang there was na may batang pumili ng Barbie. We kind of led with that. And Barbie has always been associated with kabaklaan. And then we also paired it with barbero, which is, the Filipino term for barbers. Sabi nila, haircuts are generally historically gendered, no? Barbershops are for men, salons are for women. And that's what Barbira is for. We wanted to create that conversation na hindi kailangan, may gender distinction ang haircuts ng babae at lalaki or anyone in between. Coming from personal experience, I would take two brothers to the barbershop. Kahit out and proud ako nun sa Camarines where I was young, I was in my teens. Still, it's uncomfortable because parang they would look at me. I had to sort of scale down the way I look imbes na I would go for the floral prints. Pag pupunta kami sa barbero ng kapambahay and maluwag na basketball shorts. So I would borrow from uncles or cousins. That level of discomfort pa lang without even someone initiating it is really, kind of a horrific experience na parang nagagaling sa loob.
It's really more trying to act, boyish, diba? Parang that's how you want to get treated normally, diba? Parang I was always conscious of, not trying to be too effeminate. Nung bata ako, conscious ako doon kasi parang may uncles, may titas would always call me out on that. Diba? Kasi parang dapat lalaki ganito.
Being a safe space essentially means that you're able to become your authentic self within that space. Kasi if may spaces na hindi safe for you, then of course you'd actually essentially look for a safe space. We would encounter customers, especially the trans-masculine customers. They kind of like the fact that we address them properly, especially yung mga, the trans-masculine lesbians. They kind of like the fact na we address them as sir or boss or chief. Kind of a horrifying story for them na pag pumunta sila ng salon, ma'am. Pag pumunta sa barbershop, ma'am pa din. May mga customers kami who would open up na sila mismo yung nag-open up. And that's how we liked it. Kasi the fact that they're opening up, that's a good sign for us na we're doing our job as a safe space.
Yung training talaga pinaka tumatak sa isip ko doon yung parang discrimination. Lahat ng nakakasalamuha mo, hindi mo pala alam yung tunay na gender, ganun. Diba parang respect mo lang.
trying to think about like parang what a queer barbershop should actually look like. Basically, we kind of like settled on the idea na it doesn't really have to parang show its queerness right off the bat, but announcing ourselves as queer owners who welcome anybody, diba, in this safe space. Yeah. Yun is enough.
The Philippine Coast Guard says it spotted at least 20 foreign vessels during its maritime patrol mission in the West Philippine Sea. In a statement on Thursday, the PCG says it recently conducted a maritime patrol mission to the Kalayaan Island Group from March 16 to 21. According to the PCG, it spotted several foreign-flagged vessels, including China Coast Guard vessels and a People's Liberation Army Navy vessel. The PCG says at least 20 Chinese, Vietnamese vessels and 2 China Coast Guard vessels were seen in Sabina Shoal. No response was received from the PCG vessels' multiple radio challenges. Rigid hull inflatable boats were deployed to disperse the foreign flag vessels in and around the shoal. Off Pag-asa Island, a People's Liberation Army Navy vessel was spotted within Pag-asa's 12 nautical mile territorial waters. The PCG issued multiple radio challenges, which were countered with the People's Liberation Army Navy vessel's own challenge. Meanwhile, in Ayungin Shoal, the PCG monitored the presence of a China Coast Guard vessel and issued radio challenges to it. The PCG says the Chinese vessel in Ayungin Shoal came as close as 1.2 nautical miles from the grounded Philippine Navy vessel BRP Sierra Madre. Senator Bato Dela Rosa says he is avoiding nations that are part of the International Criminal Court out of fear of possibly being detained. De La Rosa, the first Philippine National Police Chief of former President Rodrigo Duterte, says he remains unfazed by the recent developments in the ICC probe into the violent drug war of the former administration. But he said he's already preparing for possible arrest.
So, hindi ako natakot dahil alam ko man talagang walang mangyari diyan. Kung hindi lang ako lalabas sa ating bansa, kung maglabas sila ng warrant of arrest, hindi man talaga lang ako pwedeng arestuhin. Yun lang, just in case. Pupunta ako ng ibang bansa at huliin ako doon, andyan na si Senator Tolentino to the rescue para mag-represent sa akin sa kaharapin ko.
Senator Francis Tolentino, a known Duterte ally, earlier announced that he would stand as legal counsel of De La Rosa before the ICC and even in local courts. The 1987 Constitution states that a senator or a member of the House of Representatives may not appear as counsel before any court of justice or the electoral tribunal or quasi-judicial and other administrative bodies. De La Rosa says he would leave the legal technicalities to Tolentino, but he was all praised for who he referred to as his fellow senator, party mate, and personal friend.
Alam kong matalino yan, magaling yan na abogado. Nakita ko talaga na mahusay siya, na international lawyer. I'm very comfortable with him. Kilala ko siya from head to foot. Alam kong hindi niya ako pababayaan. He will fight with all his might just to defend me.
House of Representatives Speaker Ferdinand Martin Romualdez will act as the caretaker of Negros Oriental's 3rd District, while Representative Arnie Teves is serving the 60-day suspension handed out by the chamber. Romualdez says he was made the caretaker under a House memorandum order that he himself issued last March 23. Romualdez shall act as the legislative caretaker of the Negros Oriental's 3rd District from March 23 to May 22. To recall, Teves was placed on a 60-day suspension after the House adopted the Committee on Ethics and Privileges recommendations to suspend Teves after he failed to physically appear before the House despite his travel authority expiring last March 9. Teves, who went to the United States for a medical trip, has refused to come back home, claiming there are serious threats to his life. Earlier, Justice Secretary Boying Remulla said Teves is being considered as one of the masterminds in the killing of Governor Romualdez and 8 others. Alamin naman natin ang mainit na balita sa mundo ng showbiz kasama si Irvin Santiago ng Bandera. Irvin?
Hi, Bay, at sa lahat ng mga kabandera natin all over the universe. Ito na nga ang latest Bandera Chika. Mismong ang mga anak-anakan ng sikat na star builder na si Johnny Manahan o mas kilala sa tawag na Mr. M ang nag-organize ng kanilang star-studded at bonggang reunion. Maraming showbiz fans ang natuwa at nasenti sa muling pagsasama-sama ng naglalakihang celebrities ng ABS-CBN, lalo na ang mga original Star Magic talents kung saan nakabanding nga nila uli si Mr. M. Nangyari ang nasabing private get-together at reunion nitong nagdaang Martes na dinaluhan ng ex-couple na sina Heart Evangelista at Jericho Rosales, pati na rin ni Piolo Pascual, John Lloyd Cruz, Bea Alonso, Dito Acampo at Maha Salvador. Sa isang litratong nakita namin ay kasama ni Heart at Maha ang young actor na si Kyle Echari. Ang chika, talagang nag-effort ang mga nabanggit na celebrities para magsama-sama uli kasama ang kanilang tatay-tatayan na si Mr. M bilang belated birthday celebration na rin ng dating Star Magic head na nagdiwang noong February 11. Sobrang nag-enjoy daw talaga ang lahat ng dumalo sa party na inabot ng 3 a.m. Kaya naman super happy and thankful si Mr. M dahil sa pasurpresang ginawa sa kanya ng mga dating alaga. Samantala, usap-usapan din ang pagpapaka-fangirl ni Bea at Maha nang magkasama muli ang ex-partners na sina Heart at Jericho makalipas ang mahabang panahon. Pinusuan at nilike din ng sandamakmak na netizens ang reunion photo ni Piolo, Dieter, Jericho at John Lloyd. Nag-request pa nga ang mga fans na sana'y magsama-sama uli ang 4 na aktor sa isang bonggang project. At yan ang Bandera Chika natin today. Thanks, Bay!
Maraming salamat, Irvin. And these are the stories you need to know today. I'm Beatriz Pinlac. Catch Inquirer Today live weekdays at 6 p.m. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. Good evening.